Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. Maple Creek hadn't changed much. That was its charm, I suppose, and sometimes its curse. The oaks still lined Elm Street like patient old soldiers. The paint on the gazebo in the town square was perpetually peeling in the same familiar spots, and Mrs. Gable's prize-winning roses still spilled over her white picket fence every summer. I'd lived here most of my 52 years, aside from college and a brief, ill-fated attempt at city life after my divorce from Tom. Coming back felt like easing into a warm bath, comfortable, predictable, maybe a little too tepid sometimes. My life had settled into a rhythm, managing the small bookstore I'd inherited from my aunt, my weekly bridge game with the girls, tending my little garden patch. It was quiet, pleasant enough, but quiet. Then Sarah called. Sarah, my best friend since kindergarten, the keeper of all my childhood secrets and teenage embarrassments. Guess who's back? She chirped, her voice fizzing with the kind of excitement usually reserved for gossip about someone's disastrous new haircut. Mark, my brother Mark. He's moved back into Mom and Dad's old place. Mark, good Lord. I hadn't thought about Mark Henderson in probably 20 years, maybe more. He was Sarah's older brother, the enigmatic, slightly brooding teenager who'd always seemed galaxies away from our giggling, braces and pimples world back then. He was the boy who could fix anything, who listened to rock music deemed too loud by his parents, who left Maple Creek the first chance he got and rarely looked back. He'd been out west somewhere, California, Oregon, working construction, building things, living a life entirely separate from the predictable hum of our hometown. I remembered him mostly as a presence, tall, quiet, usually grease-stained from working on some engine, with eyes that seemed to see more than he let on. He wasn't unkind, just distant, preoccupied with his own orbit. Wow, Mark, I managed, trying to conjure a clearer image. That's unexpected. What brought him back? Sarah launched into the story. Their parents' house needing significant repairs after they'd moved into assisted living, Mark deciding he needed a change of pace from the relentless pace of the city, wanting to be closer now that his folks were getting older. It all sounded very practical, very sensible. But Mark Henderson and Maple Creek? The combination felt jarring, like hearing a surf rock anthem played on a church organ. My initial reaction was mild curiosity, tinged with that odd nostalgia you feel for people who were part of the scenery of your youth. He was just Sarah's brother, after all, a figure from the past. It wasn't like his return would ripple my placid pond. Or so I thought. A few days later, I was wrestling with a stubborn shipment of boxes outside the bookstore. The delivery guy, bless his heart, was new and had left the heavy cartons right in the middle of the narrow sidewalk. I was contemplating the physics of dragging versus lifting when a shadow fell over me. I looked up, squinting against the afternoon sun, and there he was, Mark Henderson. Older, of course. Lines etched around his eyes and mouth, telling tales of sun and time. His dark hair was shorter than I vaguely remembered, threaded with distinguished streaks of gray at the temples. But the eyes, they were the same. Deep-set, intelligent, and unnervingly observant. He wasn't wearing grease-stained jeans anymore. Instead, a simple, well-worn flannel shirt and clean work pants. He looked solid, grounded. Need a hand with those, Ellen? His voice was deeper now, a low rumble that still held a hint of that youthful quietness. It sent a strange, unexpected little shiver down my spine. I hadn't heard him say my name in decades. Mark. Hi. Yes, actually. That would be wonderful. This new delivery guy seems to think I have superhuman strength, I replied, trying to sound breezy, masking the sudden odd flutter in my chest. He smiled, a genuine, easy smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. It transformed his face, softening the slightly serious set of his features. Without another word, he hefted 2 of the largest boxes as if they were filled with feathers. "Where do you want them?" he asked. "Just inside the door is perfect. Thank you." He carried them in, then came back for the rest. I followed him into the cool, slightly musty interior of the shop, the familiar scent of paper and ink suddenly feeling charged with a new energy. "So," I said, leaning against the counter as he stacked the boxes neatly, "Sarah told me you were back. Welcome home. Or back, I guess." He surveyed the bookstore, his gaze lingering on the packed shelves, the cozy reading nook in the corner. "Thanks. It's different, being back. Different good, different bad," I prompted, genuinely curious. He leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms. It was a casual pose, but there was an intensity in his stillness. Just different, quieter, slower. Took me a few days to adjust my internal clock. He paused, his eyes meeting mine again. "Place looks good, Ellen. Suits you." The compliment was simple, direct, but it landed with surprising warmth. Tom, my ex, had always thought the bookstore was a nice little hobby. Mark seemed to see it, and perhaps me, differently. "Thanks," I murmured, feeling a blush creep up my neck. "It keeps me busy. Mostly." An awkward beat of silence stretched between us, filled only by the ticking of the old grandfather clock near the window. This wasn't the distant teenager I remembered. This was a man, weathered and thoughtful, standing in my quiet little shop, making me feel noticed. It was unsettling, and if I was honest with myself, strangely intriguing. "Well," he said, pushing off the doorframe, "I should let you get back to it. Just heading over to the hardware store. The list of things Dad's old house needs is longer than my arm." "The joys of home ownership," I quipped. "Tell me about it." He chuckled. "A nice sound. Maybe I'll see you around, Ellen." "Yeah, maybe. Maple Creek isn't that big." He gave a slight nod, a ghost of that smile playing on his lips again, and then he was gone, the bell above the door tinkling softly in his wake. I stood there for a moment, the air still seeming to vibrate slightly. Sarah's brother, Mark Henderson, back in town, and just like that, the quiet, predictable rhythm of my life felt disrupted. Life in Maple Creek meant bumping into people. It was unavoidable. A few days after our encounter at the bookstore, I saw Mark again at the farmer's market. He was haggling good-naturedly with old Mr. Abernathy over the price of tomatoes, a canvas bag slung over his shoulder. He caught my eye across a display of artisanal jams and gave me a nod and that small, quick smile. I smiled back, feeling that odd little flutter again. It was ridiculous. I was a grown woman, perfectly content, and Mark Henderson was just Sarah's brother. But there was something about his presence, his quiet solidity, that felt different now. Later that week, Sarah had invited me over for dinner. "Mark's going to be there," she added, almost as an afterthought. "He's fixing Mom's leaky faucet. Figured I'd feed him." Part of me hesitated. It felt complicated, somehow. But refusing would seem strange, unfriendly. So I went, bringing a bottle of wine and a carefully constructed casualness. The Henderson house hadn't changed much either, filled with the comfortable clutter of decades of family life. Mark was in the kitchen, tools spread out on a towel under the sink, his brow furrowed in concentration. He looked up as Sarah and I came in, wiping his hands on a rag. "Hey, Ellen," he said, his greeting easy, familiar. Dinner was surprisingly relaxed. Sarah chattered away, filling the silences, but Mark and I found ourselves talking more than I'd expected. Not about the old days, not really. We talked about books. He surprised me by being an avid reader, particularly of history and biographies. We talked about his work out west, the vastness of the landscapes he helped build upon, the satisfaction of creating something tangible. I talked about the challenges and rewards of running a small business in a changing world, the connections I made with customers over shared literary loves. He listened intently, asking thoughtful questions. It wasn't flirtatious, not in any overt way. It was simply connection. Two adults finding common ground, sharing perspectives shaped by different paths, taken since leaving the same starting point. Sarah watched us, a curious little smile playing on her lips, but she didn't comment. After dinner, while Sarah cleared the plates, Mark and I ended up on the porch swing, the evening air cool and smelling of cut grass. The rhythmic creak of the swing was the only sound for a moment. "It's strange," he said softly, looking out at the darkening streetlights flickering on. "Being back here feels like stepping into a photograph sometimes." "I know what you mean," I admitted. "Sometimes I feel like I never left, and other times it feels like a lifetime ago." He turned his head, his gaze thoughtful in the dim light. "You seem content here, Ellen, like you fit." "I guess I do," I said. "It took me a while to figure out that this pace suits me. After the divorce, after trying the city, this felt like coming home." I rarely talked about the divorce, even with Sarah, but it slipped out easily with him. He didn't pry, just nodded slowly. "Sometimes the place you run from is the place you needed all along," he mused. "Took me 30 years to figure that out." We sat in comfortable silence for a while longer, watching fireflies blink in the twilight. There was no awkwardness, no pressure. Just a quiet understanding passing between us, an unexpected sense of ease. When I left later, walking the few blocks back to my own quiet house, I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the wine. It was the warmth of shared conversation, of being seen not just as Sarah's friend or the bookstore lady, but as myself. The pond of my life was definitely rippling now, and the ripples felt surprisingly good. The encounters became more frequent, less accidental. A shared coffee when we both happened to be at the town's only decent cafe, a longer chat when he stopped by the bookstore, ostensibly looking for a specific historical account of the county, a wave across the town square. Each interaction chipped away a little more at the image of the aloof teenager I remembered, revealing the thoughtful, observant man he'd become. He was a good listener, genuinely interested in my thoughts on books, on the town, on life. And I found myself equally curious about him, about the years he'd spent away, the experiences that had shaped him. One rainy Saturday afternoon, the bell above the bookstore door jingled, and Mark walked in, shaking drops from his jacket. "Figured I'd find you here," he said, smiling. "Hiding from the weather." "Best place to be on a day like this," I replied, gesturing to the cozy armchair near the window. "Grab a seat, if you're not in a hurry." He settled into the chair, looking completely at home amongst the shelves. We talked for over an hour, the rain drumming softly against the window pane. He told me about a particularly challenging construction project in the mountains, the camaraderie and the solitude. I spoke about my frustration with trying to get younger people interested in physical books in the digital age. He mentioned how much he was enjoying fixing up his parents' place, the satisfaction of working with his hands on something familiar, something with history. "It's funny," he said, swirling the imaginary dregs in the empty coffee cup I'd given him earlier. "Out west, I built huge structures, bridges, complexes, things that changed the skyline. But working on that old house, sanding down a piece of trim my dad installed 50 years ago. It feels more significant somehow. I understood completely. It's connecting with roots, isn't it? Like touching the past. He nodded, his eyes meeting mine. Yeah, and maybe figuring out the future too. There was a weight to his words, a sense of transition that resonated deeply with me. My own life felt settled, yes, but sometimes I wondered if settled was just another word for stuck. Talking to Mark, someone who had actively chosen to return, to reconnect, sparked something in me, a questioning I hadn't allowed myself before. Later that week he called me. Not Sarah, him. Ellen, it's Mark. Listen, I know this is out of the blue, but I'm heading up to Miller's Point tomorrow morning. Thought I'd try and get some decent photos of the valley with the fall colors starting. Wondered if you'd maybe like to come along? If you're free, that is. Miller's Point. It was a local overlook, a place teenagers went to park, families went for picnics. It offered a stunning panorama of Maple Creek nestled in the valley below. I hadn't been up there in years. Miller's Point? I repeated, surprised. Yes, actually. I'm free tomorrow morning. That sounds lovely. Great. He sounded genuinely pleased. How about I pick you up around 9? The next morning was crisp and bright, the autumn air carrying the scent of wood smoke and damp earth. Mark arrived promptly in his sturdy pickup truck, a thermos and a camera bag on the seat between us. The drive up the winding road was comfortable, filled with easy conversation. At the overlook, the view was breathtaking. The valley spread out below us, a tapestry of fiery reds, burnt oranges and golden yellows, stitched together by the winding silver thread of the creek. The air was clean and cool. Mark set up his camera, his movements precise and focused. I leaned against the wooden railing, simply soaking it all in. He didn't ignore me, though. He'd pause, point out a specific cluster of trees, comment on the way the light hit the church steeple in the distance. After taking several shots, he packed up his camera and poured us both coffee from the thermos. It was strong and hot, warming my hands and insides. We stood side by side, looking out at the familiar landscape, yet seeing it with fresh eyes. You know, I said quietly, I haven't been up here since. Well, since high school probably. Mark sipped his coffee. Me neither. Used to come up here when I needed to think. Get away from things. Me too, I admitted. We stood in silence for a moment, the shared, unspoken memories hanging in the air. Then he turned to me, his expression serious but kind. Ellen, he began, his voice low. I know this is, maybe unexpected. Us spending time together like this. I held my breath, unsure where this was going. It is unexpected, I agreed softly. But it's been nice, Mark, really nice. He looked relieved, a small smile touching his lips. Good. It has been for me too. He hesitated, then continued. Sarah's my sister, and you're her best friend. I wouldn't want to make things awkward or weird. Me neither, I assured him, appreciating his directness, his respect for the existing lines of our lives. I value my friendship with Sarah more than anything. Me too, he echoed. But I value this too, getting to know you again, or maybe getting to know you for the first time. His honesty was disarming. He wasn't playing games, wasn't trying to be someone he wasn't. He was just Mark, Sarah's brother, the man who'd unexpectedly re-entered my quiet life and was making it feel less quiet, more vibrant. Standing there on Miller's Point, surrounded by the brilliant colors of autumn, I felt a profound sense of connection, a shared vulnerability, and the distinct feeling that something significant was shifting within me, like the turning of the leaves below. The weeks that followed settled into a new kind of rhythm, one that included Mark. It wasn't a whirlwind romance, nothing dramatic or gossip-worthy for the Maple Creek grapevine. It was quieter than that, deeper. Shared dinners, sometimes just the two of us, sometimes with Sarah, who seemed quietly pleased by our burgeoning friendship. Long walks along the creek path as the leaves fell, crunching underfoot. Visits to the bookstore that stretched into hours, talking about everything and nothing. We discovered shared histories we hadn't known, like the fact both our fathers had worked at the old paper mill before it closed down, or that we both had the same notoriously strict third-grade teacher, Mrs. Davison. These small overlaps felt like finding hidden anchors, tethering our separate pasts together in unexpected ways. One evening, he invited me over to his parents' place, now increasingly his place, for dinner. He'd been working on the kitchen, installing new countertops, and fixing the ancient plumbing. He was proud of his work, and rightly so. As he cooked, a surprisingly delicious pasta dish, he talked about the satisfaction of bringing the old house back to life, respecting its history while making it his own. We ate at the small, refinished wooden table in the newly bright kitchen. The overhead light cast a warm glow, illuminating the comfortable lines on his face as he spoke. There was an ease between us now, a comfort that felt both new and ancient. After dinner, he pulled out an old photo album he'd found while cleaning out a closet. "Look at this," he said, a nostalgic smile on his face. He opened it to a page showing a group of awkward teenagers at a high school dance. There I was, with big hair and far too much blue eyeshadow, standing next to Sarah. And in the background, leaning against a wall, trying to look coolly detached, was Mark. We both laughed. "Good grief," I said, covering my eyes playfully. "Look at us. We thought we were so grown up. We had no idea